The early morning sky over San Francisco was covered in a thin mist, with faint sunlight slipping through the branches of ancient elm trees in the Levington estate's garden. The sound of water trickling from the large fountain in the courtyard blended with the chirping of a few sparrows, creating what seemed like a peaceful scene. Elena Brooks knelt on one knee on the stone pavement by the lake, gently lifting Noah Levington's left foot. The 8-year-old boy with messy blonde hair stood trembling on unsteady legs after last year's accident. "You're doing great. Just need to tie your shoelace and you can go on," Elena said softly, her warm voice soothing his fear. Noah pressed his lips together, trying to keep his balance. He nodded while looking down, unaware of the steady, heavy footsteps approaching from the stone corridor. The tall figure of Alexander Levington appeared, clad in a perfectly tailored charcoal gray suit, his polished leather shoes reflecting the light. His face was as hard as stone, his cold gray eyes locked on the scene before him. "Get out of here, you filthy servant. What are you doing with my son?" His voice cut through the quiet air like a blade, making Noah flinch. Elena looked up, stunned. "Mr. Levington, I was just—" Before she could finish, Alexander strode forward, yanking Noah forcefully into his arms. The pull made the boy wince in pain. He turned to Elena, eyes full of contempt, and with a deliberate shove, pushed her back hard. Elena's heel slipped on the dew-slick stone. She lost her balance and tumbled into the shallow lake, the icy water engulfing her, drowning her familiar jasmine scent in its metallic tang. She stood up, water streaming from her dark hair, her soaked clothes clinging to her body. Her heart pounded, but she tried to keep her voice calm. "Mr. Levington, I was only helping Noah." "Helping?" Alexander cut her off, his voice like steel. "Don't insult my intelligence. I've spent millions on the best doctors, the brightest minds from Harvard, Stanford, Johns Hopkins. Even they couldn't do it. And you, a mediocre graduate, think you can do what they couldn't? You think the color of your skin is some miracle?" Noah panicked, trying to speak up. "Dad, don't. She makes me feel stronger." But Alexander didn't even look at his son. He stepped closer to Elena, lowering his voice, each word pounding into her chest. "People like you need to remember your place. You're here to mop floors, pour water, stay silent, not touch what doesn't belong to you. If it happens again, I'll ensure you never find work in any city." The air seemed to freeze. The sound of the lake's water became harsher, colder. Elena looked straight at him, though her throat felt tight. "I don't see Noah as property. He deserves a chance." "Enough. Pack your things. You're finished here." Noah's sobs echoed, swallowed by the sharp thud of leather shoes on stone as Alexander carried his son away, leaving Elena by the lake, cold, drenched, and with a humiliation that had never before cut so deep. That evening, the Levington estate was quieter than usual. A cold wind from the San Francisco Bay swept through the trees, making the shadows of leaves sway and dance across the white walls. In the upstairs study, Alexander Levington sat alone in front of the large screen of the security system. He clicked through each camera feed out of habit, until he stopped at the footage from that afternoon by the fountain. The image was crystal clear. Elena Brooks kneeling beside Noah, tying the boy's shoelace. There was no intrusion, no hint of overstepping, only patient eyes and a gentle smile. Alexander was about to move on, but the next moment made his hand freeze. After tying the shoelace, Elena said something. Noah hesitated, then suddenly took 1, 2, 3 steps toward the stone bench. There was no physical therapist or assistive device, only her voice guiding him and her hand ready to catch him if he fell. Alexander rewound the clip, watched it a second time, a third. Each time the weight in his chest grew heavier. The anger from earlier in the day gave way to something even more uncomfortable: shame. She had accomplished what an entire team of renowned doctors could not, and he had pushed her into the water, using the cruelest words to humiliate her. He turned off the screen and stood, but had to stop beside his desk, his hand curling into a fist. The pride of a Levington made him loathe admitting mistakes. Yet the image of Noah walking, the boy's smile, lingered in his mind like a song that would not end. The next morning, with mist still blanketing the sloping streets of San Francisco, Elena Brooks opened the door to her small apartment above a laundromat. She froze when she saw Alexander Levington standing there, not in a powerful suit, but in a white dress shirt, holding 2 steaming cups of coffee. I was wrong. His voice was rougher than usual, as if each word scraped against his pride. I reviewed the footage. You helped Noah more than anyone ever has. Elena kept her guarded expression, arms crossed. Your apology can't erase what happened yesterday. Alexander slightly nodded as if accepting the blow to his ego. I know, but I want you to come back. Not part-time, full-time. Name your terms, and I'll meet them. Elena was silent for a long moment, then took the coffee he offered, her eyes never leaving his now less cold face. I'll come back. But not for you. For Noah. Alexander only nodded. For the first time in years, he realized he was not in control of the situation and, strangely, he didn't entirely hate the feeling. On the morning Elena Brooks returned to the Levington estate, the San Francisco sky was crystal clear after the night's rain. Sunlight streamed through the massive glass windows, spilling over the polished marble floor as if coating it in a soft, golden hue. The heavy mahogany door had barely swung open when Noah Levington rushed toward her like a small gust of wind. Elena. The boy wrapped his arms tightly around her waist, his face so radiant it was hard to believe he had cried the day before. Elena bent down, embracing him in return. That hug was warmer than any greeting could be. But when she looked up, she saw Alexander Levington standing just behind his son, hands in his pockets, silently observing. They stepped into the vast foyer, where towering white stone columns reached the arched ceiling, and a spiraling staircase seemed to embrace the space. Each step Elena took echoed, a reminder that this was still Alexander's domain, a world where power and ego were the law. In the grand living room, Noah excitedly told her, I want to try walking from the sofa to the window today without holding on. Elena smiled. All right, but follow my guidance, one step at a time. Alexander sat in an armchair by the fireplace, his eyes fixed on them. Catching his gaze, Elena decided it was time to set clear boundaries. She turned to him, her voice calm but firm. If you want Noah to progress, we must agree on one thing. I will decide the training methods, timing, and limits for him. No interference while I'm guiding him. A heavy silence followed. The firelight reflected in Alexander's eyes, part challenge, part contemplation. You're setting terms with me? His voice was low, not loud but carried weight. Not terms, principles, for Noah's sake. Elena's eyes didn't waver from his. Finally, Alexander leaned back, swirling the wine in his glass. Fine. But don't make me regret it. That afternoon, Elena and Noah went out to the garden. The wind from the bay brushed past the white rose bushes, carrying a faint trace of salt. Noah rested his hand on her arm, slowly stepping along the stone path toward the bench by the lake. Alexander appeared at the far end of the path, standing silently. This time, he didn't intervene, and when Noah reached the bench, his face lit up as if he had conquered the whole world. A faint smile touched Alexander's lips. It was brief, but enough for Elena to notice that the cold, unyielding armor of power had begun to crack. A week after Elena Brooks returned to work, Alexander Levington entered the living room with a gold-embossed invitation. Noah will attend the Children's Medical Foundation Charity Gala at the Ritz-Carlton this Saturday. I want you to prepare him for it. Elena looked up from the therapy exercises, frowning. Are you sure this is the right time? A crowded event or loud noise could make Noah anxious and stressed. That could slow his recovery. Alexander folded his arms. This is an important event. Many influential people will be there. They need to see that my son is making progress. Elena set the exercise folder down, meeting his eyes. I understand image matters to you, but Noah's mental and physical health matter far more. If you truly want me to keep helping him, take my advice. Only go if I'm with him, and we leave when Noah wants to. Alexander was silent for a few seconds, then gave a slight, reluctant nod. Fine. Your conditions. On the night of the gala, the Ritz-Carlton's Grand Hall glowed under magnificent crystal chandeliers. Guests in tuxedos and sweeping evening gowns mingled, laughter mixing with the chime of clinking glasses. Elena appeared beside Noah in a simple yet elegant navy blue dress, her hair neatly pinned, her expression calm. From the moment they entered, she felt the weight of watching eyes. Some curious, others condescending. While Alexander spoke with a group of donors, Elena stood with Noah near the buffet table. She overheard two women at a nearby table. I'm surprised Alexander lets the nanny stand that close. In my day, the help knew to stay back, especially someone like her. The second woman's voice dropped, heavy with implication. Noah turned to Elena, his brow furrowed. What are they talking about? Before she could answer, a deep, familiar voice came from just behind them. Is there a problem here? Alexander Levington stood there, his gaze sharp as steel. One of the women gave a nervous laugh. Oh, Alexander, we were just surprised to see your staff attending in such a prominent way. Alexander turned slightly, pointing to Elena, his words measured and clear. Elena Brooks is not just staff. She is the reason Noah is walking again. If anyone here thinks that's a problem, say it to my face, not in whispers behind her back. The words hit like a bucket of cold water over the group. An awkward silence fell. Elena felt her heart race not from shame, but from surprise. It was the first time Alexander had publicly defended her in front of the upper class. Noah squeezed her hand, whispering, "Told you. Dad knows you're good." 2 days after the gala night, Elena Brooks was helping Noah Levington practice walking along the glass corridor facing the garden when she heard slow but heavy footsteps behind her. Alexander Levington was leaning against the doorway, hands in his pockets, his gaze somber. "Do you have a minute?" Elena nodded, signaling for Noah to take a break, then followed him into the library, a quiet room lined with walnut bookshelves, the scent of leather from old volumes still lingering in the air. Alexander poured himself a glass of scotch but didn't drink it immediately. "The other night, at the gala, you saw how I reacted. That wasn't by chance." Elena stayed silent, waiting for him to continue. He set the glass on the table, his eyes drifting far away. "When I was Noah's age, my father had a private driver. His name was Henry. A kind black man who taught me chess and drove me to school every morning. One day I overheard my father telling him, 'You'll never be anything more than a driver.'" Alexander swallowed, his voice turning rough. "I said nothing. I didn't defend him. I didn't protest. A week later, Henry disappeared from my life. I told myself I was different from my father, that I respected people who worked hard, until the day I pushed you into that lake." Elena looked straight at him, her voice soft but sharp. "Respect isn't about telling yourself you have it. It's in the choices you make every day, in how you treat people, especially those who can't defend themselves." Alexander slightly nodded, as if taking a hit that landed squarely. "I want to change. But I'm not sure I know where to start." "Start by listening. Not to reply, but to understand," Elena replied. Their conversation was interrupted by a knock at the door. A servant announced, "Mr. Levington, Miss Margaret has arrived." Elena noticed the slight tightening at the corner of Alexander's mouth. Margaret Levington entered, exuding aristocratic poise in an emerald green dress, her blonde hair perfectly styled. Her smile froze the moment she saw Elena. "Alexander, I spoke to Mother this morning. The whole family thinks this isn't appropriate." Margaret's eyes swept over Elena from head to toe, the implication unmistakable. "The Levington family's reputation doesn't allow for—" Alexander cut her off, his voice cold as steel. "Margaret, Elena is the reason Noah is making progress. If Mother or anyone else wants to discuss this, they'll speak to me, not her." Margaret raised an eyebrow. "You've changed, and not for the better." Alexander's reply was short and firm. "Maybe. Or maybe it's the first time I'm doing the right thing." The air turned thick. Margaret left, her heels striking evenly against the hardwood floor, leaving behind a heavy silence. Elena glanced at Alexander, and this time she saw that he did not look away. 3 days after the confrontation with Margaret Levington, what began as an ordinary morning shifted when Elena Brooks entered the estate's kitchen. Mrs. Aldridge, the housekeeper, was standing close to the old radio, listening intently to the news. When Elena approached, she quickly switched it off, but not before Elena caught sight of the magazine lying on the table. On its cover, a bold, sensational headline screamed, "The Mysterious Past of the Levington Nanny. From Night Shift Worker to the Boy Worth Millions." Just beneath it was a photo of Elena holding Noah in the garden, taken from a distance. Flipping to the first page, she felt each printed line pierce her pride like needles. The odd job she had taken in the East Bay were framed as a string of failures. A single near eviction over unpaid rent was twisted into a history of financial instability. And of course, everything was wrapped in a tone dripping with sarcasm about her suspicious rise into the Levington household. Elena drew a deep breath and folded the magazine shut. She knew exactly whose hand was pulling the strings behind this. That evening, Alexander Levington walked into the family room, holding an iPad displaying the same article. "I assume you've seen this?" "Margaret." Elena's reply was short, not a question. Alexander gave a slight nod. Her style exactly. Tarnish someone's name indirectly, leave no trace. Elena crossed her arms. "If you truly want me here for Noah's sake, don't protect me behind closed doors. Do it where the whole world can see." Alexander studied her for a few seconds, then gave a slight nod. "All right." The chance came sooner than expected. 2 days later, Margaret arrived at the estate for dinner, this time unannounced. The air in the dining room, peaceful moments earlier, thickened as she took her seat, her thin smile as sharp as a blade. "Alexander, you should reconsider the person you let Noah grow attached to. The press is talking." Elena was about to stay silent, but Alexander set his wineglass down, his voice clear and firm. "If they're talking, then let me be clear. Elena Brooks is the sole reason my son can walk again. She's done what my entire team of hired specialists failed to do. Anyone with a problem can tell me directly, not whisper behind her back." Margaret froze briefly but quickly recovered her smile, continuing to cut her steak as if nothing had been said. Elena remained still, but inside she knew this battle had just begun, and Margaret had no intention of giving up. Like wildfire, rumors about Elena Brooks's questionable past spread through San Francisco's elite circles. Every morning, a fresh tabloid with a new headline appeared on the Levington estate's breakfast table, each leak calculated just enough to be untraceable. Alexander Levington knew exactly whose hand was behind it, and this time, he had no intention of staying silent. One evening, as the sunset bathed the bay in red, Alexander called Elena into the library. "Do you want to end this right in front of everyone?" he asked, his voice low and firm. Elena met his gaze. "As long as Noah isn't used as the centerpiece." Alexander gave a slight nod. "He won't be. But they'll see the truth." 3 days later, an elegant invitation was sent to dozens of powerful names: Noah's former rehabilitation doctors, the principal of his private school, and a few reputable media figures. The reason is a special demonstration of Noah Levington's progress. On the day of the event, the estate's garden was transformed into an open-air reception. The lawn was perfectly trimmed. Rows of white chairs lined up neatly facing the fountain, the very spot where, just weeks ago, Elena had been pushed into the water. Elena wore a simple turquoise dress and stood beside Noah in a crisp white shirt and khaki pants. The boy's eyes shone brightly, though his hand instinctively sought hers for reassurance. Alexander stepped before the crowd, microphone in hand. "Thank you all for coming." Instead of saying much, "I want you to see something I once believed was impossible." He stepped back. Elena bent down, whispering to Noah. Slowly, "Look toward the last row." Noah nodded 1 step, 2 steps, 3, then kept going, each movement steadier, until he touched the stone bench. Applause erupted, not just from the guests, but also from the household staff, standing quietly at the back. Among the last row sat Margaret Levington, uninvited. She crossed her legs, sunglasses on despite the overcast sky, her face expressionless. But Elena caught the tight press of her lips as the camera swept over the moment Noah threw his arms around her amid the clapping. Alexander returned to the microphone. "This is the result of patience, dedication, and trust things Elena Brooks has brought to my son. If anyone wishes to speak on this matter, remember what you've seen today before you do." Margaret remained still, not clapping, but Elena felt the balance tip in her favor for the first time in weeks. She knew Margaret wouldn't quit, but now, the game had shifted to the offensive, and Margaret would have to play on their field. The night after Noah Levington's progress demonstration, just before 11 p.m., Elena Brooks was gathering paperwork in her room when she heard a faint click outside the window. She walked over and pulled back the curtain. Sitting squarely on the windowsill was a black envelope. No address, no stamp, just messy, scrawled handwriting. "Leave while you still can." Inside was a grainy printed photo, Her and Noah practicing walking in the garden, taken from a long distance with a telephoto lens. Beneath it, in red ink, were the words, "The boy will be safer without you." A chill ran down Elena's spine. She took the envelope straight to Alexander Levington's study. He looked at the photo, his gray eyes darkening. "I know who did this." "Margaret?" Elena asked, not as a question, but a statement. Alexander nodded, pressing the button on his desk to summon Eric Dorsey, the head of security. "Double the security around the house. Check every camera. No one gets in here without me knowing." 2 nights later, at 2 a.m., the estate's alarm system blared. Elena woke abruptly, rushing into the hallway where she saw Alexander and Eric ordering the security team to lock down the east garden. They dragged out a man dressed in dark clothing, hands cuffed. In his pockets, a mini camera, a listening device, and the business card of a private investigation service, a company Alexander knew Margaret had hired in the past. As Elena watched him being taken away, fear gave way to something else: anger. "She's crossed the line," Elena said coldly. Alexander stood still for a moment, then turned to her. "Then we'll step into her game, but play by my rules." In his eyes at that moment, Elena saw something more dangerous than power: the will to strike back without mercy. The morning after the break-in, Alexander Levington had been sitting in the library since dawn. A thick case file lay on the desk, next to a cup of coffee gone cold. When Elena Brooks walked in, he looked up, his eyes lit with a cold, determined resolve. "I've contacted Attorney Carter. We're going to sue Margaret for harassment, unlawful trespass, and endangering the safety of a child." Elena frowned slightly. "Are you sure? Taking this to court will put your whole family under the public spotlight." "Good." Alexander's reply was curt. "Let everyone see her true face." The day in court. Courtroom number 4 of the San Francisco courthouse was packed with reporters, camera shutters clicking non-stop. Margaret Levington sat at the defendant's table, maintaining her air of aristocratic poise in an impeccably tailored black dress, her blue eyes showing no visible reaction. Attorney Carter addressed the jury. "The evidence shows the defendant hired a private investigator to unlawfully enter the plaintiff's property, install unauthorized surveillance devices, and send explicit threats to the caregiver of 8-year-old Noah Levington." Images taken from the intruder's phone appeared on the large screen at the front of the courtroom, long lens shots of Elena and Noah from afar. Several jurors frowned, exchanging uneasy glances. When it was her turn, Margaret's attorney framed her actions as concern for her nephew's safety and an attempt to verify the caregiver's competence. But then an audio clip recovered from the investigator's phone filled the room. Margaret's voice. "All I need is for her to make one mistake, and I'll make Alexander regret it for the rest of his life." A ripple of murmurs spread through the room. Margaret kept her composure, but the white-knuckled grip on her chair betrayed her true feelings. Elena was called to the stand. She stood tall, her voice steady. "I don't care about the Levington family's reputation or wealth. I'm here for Noah. But when someone threatens that boy's safety, I will not stay silent." From the plaintiff's table, Alexander never took his eyes off her. Perhaps for the first time, he realized Elena wasn't just Noah's protector. She was someone willing to stand against an entire power structure if necessary. The trial lasted 3 days. On the 4th, the judge delivered the verdict. The defendant, Margaret Levington, is found guilty of harassment, hiring an unlawful trespasser, and endangering the safety of a child. A restraining order prohibiting contact with Noah Levington and financial penalties is issued for 5 years. Camera shutters erupted, flashes firing in rapid succession. Margaret left the courtroom with a face as hard as stone, and for the first time, no one in the media called her San Francisco's power woman anymore. One May morning, golden sunlight stretched across the steep streets of San Francisco. The Levington estate no longer echoed with the hurried footsteps of patrolling guards or the tense phone calls between rooms. Peace had returned, a peace Elena Brooks knew was bought with the price of months of unyielding confrontation. Noah Levington was running on the expansive lawn, not walking, but running through the white rose garden. His radiant smile mingled with the morning bird song, as if all the shadows looming over him had finally dissolved. Elena stood on the stone pathway, watching. Alexander approached, holding 2 cups of hot coffee. He handed one to her. "Noah just asked me if he could join the charity run at school. I told him, if Elena says yes." Elena chuckled, shaking her head. You're still learning to take someone else's advice, right? Alexander sipped his coffee, eyes still on his son. I'm learning, and I'm grateful. That afternoon, the three of them attended Noah's preschool graduation. When his name was called, Noah walked up to the stage, unaided to receive his certificate. Applause thundered through the hall, and Elena saw Alexander's eyes shining brighter from the front row than ever. After the ceremony, a reporter asked Alexander about the woman who changed his son's life. He didn't look at the camera, he looked at Elena. She didn't just change Noah's life. She changed mine. And if anyone asks me what the greatest legacy of a Levington is, it's knowing when to trust. Later that evening, when the guests had gone, Elena and Noah sat by the fountain, where everything had begun. The boy tied his shoelaces, then looked up. Miss Elena, thank you for not leaving me, even when people said bad things about you. Elena smiled, gently ruffling his blonde hair. I made you a promise. And when I make a promise, I keep it. The sunset spilled gold over the water's shimmering surface. In that moment, Elena knew that whatever road lay ahead, the trust she had planted in Noah would outlast any rumor.